And welcome to Downtime Distractions. This is Ming, also known as Mung Beans, and today we're going to do a little review of this game, more like what I like to call favorites and flaws. So this game is brought to you by Zaviant, and I believe this is their first game. So just to give you a brief introduction of the game is basically a first-person shooter magic casting game. You've probably seen it around. It's quite neat, it's quite unique. So instead of your typical first-person shooter melee attacking or shooty bangs, you basically play as a mage throwing magic left and right, killing monsters and raising the dead. So I've had a go at this game. I've been playing it for probably about 13 hours plus. So let's resume where we left off. So here we are, and this is Battle Mage, Lichdom Battle Mage. So as you can tell from the game, just a little quick look, it is a pretty good looking game. I mean, the textures are really nice, it's quite detailed, and it's definitely an enjoyable world to, look at and play amongst the game. Now, not too sure how far I am in this game, but I am probably more than halfway, I'd say. Not sure if I've reached quite the end, but definitely over halfway. Now, the story behind this game is nothing really amazing, nothing really brand new. It's your typical, hero from a humble beginning, destined to become the savior of the world and defeats the greater evil. So I'm not really going to go too much detail about, what the story is and who these characters are and blah blah blah. But but what I'm just going to show you in this video is just, how it's played and the movement of the game and everything. So just to start off, the movements are the same as every first-person game. You move forward and back and strafe left and right, just like any game you play on the keyboard. It's probably going to be different if you're playing it on a console, of course, using a gamepad. I always prefer playing first-person shooter games with a keyboard and mouse. I don't know, I just feel I can get a little bit more precision in my aim, and I can get a little bit more fast movement. But anyways, that's just, your own preference. Now, the game basically has two basic moves, or three really. The first is that you can cast a spell by clicking on the left button and it'll cast a spell. The other is if you held right click, it's essentially a block or a shield. Now, if you time these right, so if you counter it, so if you press right click just as a enemy is about to hit you, you will do something like a counter effect, which either, you burst out flames or you burst out. It all depends on, what you put in your inventory and what effects it does. The third thing is basically if you hold down the left and the right mouse click, you will get to cast area of effect spells. So this is actually really nice because the controls is actually very, very nice, and you can see, where you can target and where you can see things, and as soon as you let go, you cast a spell. So again, these AoE spells, area of effect spells, will basically depend on what element you choose for your magic, and whether you want to do damage with them or whether you just want to weaken them or like slow them down, all kinds of things like that, which I will try to go a little bit over that inventory. So speaking of that, let's head to doing some battles. So we're going to try and head into some battle here. So I've basically got three spells. Oh, here we go. And then I'll show you while battles. So the battles can get pretty intense, as you can see. go. Let's see some action. So as you can tell, the battle is pretty intense. And okay, he's shooting from somewhere. I apologize if it's a little bit jerky. It's just the way I tend to play is quite a little bit Counter-Strike-ish. So I'll try my best. Try my best to not jerk the view too much. There we go. That guy. Oh, another one. Yeah, I really do like that spell. Yeah, so the action can be pretty pacey. You know, initially when I played this game, I thought, oh, it might be a slow going kind of game, but as you can tell from the combat, it's pretty intense. There's a lot of like dodging that needs to happen. You need to create a lot of space for yourself um, between your enemy to really, you know, be more effective. Now, the other thing I also want to show you is that there is no real jump in this game. You have what they call teleporting, which again depends on what you equipped in the inventory, depends on what kind of teleporting you have. In my case here, it's more like a little dash that, you know, gets me far away from the enemy as much. There is a limit of how much you can do to those, so, you know, you just have to be a bit careful. So these things here are just your shield charge. So you can see on the bottom left hand corner is three kind of little glowing sphere. Those represent basically your health. If all those three gets blown out, you're pretty much dead. Um, you can recharge them by basically um, going to these guys and recharging your shield. So nothing. So in terms of like the aim, it is a little bit auto aiming. It's not quite as precise. There is no real like if you cast a spell at its head, at an enemy's head, you're gonna get a headshot. It's basically whatever that ball is gonna hit is gonna do damage. And the damage is again based on what sort of items you've got equipped in your inventory. So, and you can only have 3 spells at a time. So, the first spell I have is sort of like a time manipulation spell, gravity related. My second spell is like an electricity, and then my third spell, which is probably the one spell that you definitely need to have, is necromancy, which means that I can cast this spell on enemies, and whoever is basically marked with the green goo, and I kill them, they raise back dead, and they're one of my minions. So, and as part of that, you can only really keep, I think, about 3 minions, but you can raise as many dead as you like, and it's really, really cool, you know, just to see your whole army of the undead just doing the work while you're in the back shooting away electricity bolts. The other thing I also want to mention is that if you do, there is your standard attack, which you just click once. But if you hold down the left mouse, you do a charge attack, which grants you an instant critical. That's also pretty cool. The sound effects in the game's amazing. I really do like the combat, and it really, really a lot of fun. So that's just the basic of the game, really. Just a little look at what it is. I'm sure if you get to play it, you'll probably understand it a little bit more and get used to the system. So we're going to start looking at our inventory. So if you go into your inventory, it's not very user friendly. It's very confusing. It's a little bit like I played this game for 10 hours plus, 10 to 13 hours plus, and I still don't really understand what I've got equipped. I don't quite understand what's really going on or the significance of these certain things. Now, in saying that, there is, as you can see in the bottom here, a smart inventory system. Now, I don't want to like say that Zephiant is a bad game company that chose bad design, but if you ever see a video game that has two options for inventory mode, then obviously something is wrong. They didn't really quite think about their inventory, or they had an idea to begin with, then they realized it didn't make sense, so they decided to make a smart inventory option, which is like, for me, ringing bells. Someone didn't really do their homework, or they didn't get enough people looking at it and trying to make it better and make small things. So what the smart inventory does is that it basically does everything for you. It converts all common items into uncommon items. It upgrades components for you. It basically you you craft improve things without understanding, like, well, what is it that I'm doing? Like, there's these huge texts that tell you what the spells do, but you don't really see. The only thing, see, I can tell from here is that, okay, I'm gonna do a bit more damage, but from the color notation, I feel like I'm downgrading, and it's sort of like, why would I want to craft and equip this? It doesn't make sense. Why would So it's very confusing, and the weird thing is you can play through this game by following the smart inventory and you'll be fine. You'll be able to finish the game without knowing what you've actually done. And this is like, to me, a little bit flawed. They could have spent a bit more time on it. So, and then you can switch back to the custom inventory, which is, I have a feeling, where they want players to be, but don't they didn't put enough effort into making it a little bit more user friendly. So as part of the game, not only is it a shooty bang, you do get to make spells. You do get to synthesize spells, which is upgrade existing ones, deconstruct them so you can extract stuff and reforge them. But the problem is, when you go to upgrade, I mean, it's just very confusing to know what belongs to what. And I think if they spent a little bit more time, maybe even just simple things like making the icons a little bit more different, a little bit more obvious of which one belongs to which, instead of having them all spheres, and just little things like, what do these numbers do? I don't know what to do. I just feel that if as a game design you force players to go to Google to try and find out what these numbers mean, then there's something wrong with your inventory system. It's just a little bit confusing. You don't know what you can do. You don't know, if I wanted to equip, what do these mean? What do they, and if I click and if I hold shift down, it gives me all these properties, which is great. I can see percentages and numbers, but I can't make a comparison. I don't know which is better. Do I want more apocalyptic effect multiplier? What does all that mean? It's very confusing and very, sad to say, not quite satisfied. I really feel like I want to get involved in understanding all these to make an amazing combinations of spells, but I have no idea what's going on. I feel very, very, confused. And then when I go to use my smart inventory, I feel I'm cheated out of the special items and things I get, which is, to me, a little bit disappointing. Like, it's a bit disappointing, and I don't feel I'm getting the full idea of this inventory system in the game, and I'm not getting the full idea of crafting, which is like, if, for example, here I can craft a lightning spell, but then they have these other things of, like, trap of the abyss, impacting pool of, I don't know which one to choose. The only thing I can get it from is from the colors. Like, obviously, okay, the orange means it's a legendary, so should I be using that? But that's not always the case, you see. If I use that, it's not as powerful as if I combined it with something else. So it's very confusing, very. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of clicking, dragging things onto the and it's the roll of dice, and I hope everything works out. So this is a bit of a flaw in the game, but and the sad thing is you don't even necessarily need to get in depth into here to play and enjoy the game, which is really sad. It's almost as if the developers spent hours developing this great feature, designers came up with an idea for this, but it's not fully utilized. So I think that if Zeviant was to make a Lichdom Battle Mage 2, they need to really, really consider about the inventory system. It's just very confusing. I don't know what I'm doing. All I know, the only thing I understand is what kind of spell I'm using, which is lightning, phase and necromancy. So that's yeah, it's a bit disappointing, and that's the inventory system that you will have to deal with, when you're playing with this game. And I recommend that if you are playing this, that you choose, you eventually figure out what kind of attack methods your spells have. You choose those that you want and that you like, and then you keep it like that, and then just constantly use the smart inventory to upgrade everything for you. That's all you have to do. That's the only thing that will actually just make your game interesting, and you won't even have to worry about your inventory system, and it just makes it so you carry on with just playing with the combat of the game. The other thing too is that there's this ability called synthesizing or synchronizing your spells together, where you do this ultimate spell attack, which if you Google you'll be able to find. And I didn't even know that that existed in the game till I went to Google. And if you have players who doesn't even know that such things existed until they found out later, then I think there is something wrong with possibly the design of teaching players what's actually available in the game. It's they haven't quite thought about it in detail, and it's not, to me it's not quite a thing that they have reviewed to hint it at the player that it's possible, and I felt that was a little bit not quite right. So that was the inventory of the system, and I think we will go talk, and then I will get to the next area to talk about the elemental changes you can do in this game. So now I've come across one of these. So these are potentially what they call checkpoints, and this is where your game gets saved, and when you activate these things, they give you the ability to assign a sigil. So this is where, as you can see, I've still got two that I haven't lost. This is where you can change the element of your spells. And it is a little bit stink that you can only use three at a time. And I guess that makes things a little bit more simple. I always just thought it would be very cool that maybe this is something that the developers could incorporate in Lichdom Battle Mage 2, is that it would be very cool if you can combine elements together to fit into these three slots. So you could have like a lightning fire spell, or an ice necromancer spell. So you eventually are able to use all three. I just feel it's a little bit, and this happens in most games, especially sort of first-person related games. I always feel it's a little bit deprived of the other abilities, because you end up sticking with three spells that you know will win the game for you, and then you don't end up using the others. So if they could come up with a better way to incorporate you using all five spells, all five elements, then they've got a pretty cool game happening there. So we're just gonna go back, and then you can travel back and forth to other areas of the game, which, to be honest, I don't know why this feature is there. I don't really see the point of it, because once you've passed one point, there's no reason for you to really go back except to try and grind and get more items. And because of the lack of inventory, the inventory system being quite confusing, there's no incentive to really go back and try and grind for better items, because you don't even know if the better items is actually better. So these are, yep, these are the
How do you
checkpoints.
fare?
So far, so good.
Like
The Griffin says the
story.
twins are out
So
of the
again, like I
races.
said, I really do
Should be
like
easy
it
to
how
find in this desert.
the story progresses with as the
Zasad
viewer
was
in
once
game.
green
Instead of having a cutscene,
until
you have a
Shax and
guy
his
that
children invaded.
talks to you and
Do
you
what
get
you
more into
must.
the story.
I need to maintain the shield.
And I think that
It is
moving
up to
ahead
you.
for
Yeah,
games in
it
the
suits
film
me
period
just
is
fine.
probably the better way to tell a story than having, you know, a big massive text where you have to read through and understand the game. Granted, you know, people do like that, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but nowadays, if you know, I think people's tolerances of reading texts are a little bit lower than what they used to be, and I think having a little in-game sort of, I don't know whether it's a fairy telling you what's happening or someone telling you what's going on, is always a good thing. So there you have it, Lichdom Battle Mage. Now, I didn't really quite go into too much detail of more aspects of the game, but I think you can tell from the video what kind of game you're going to be in for. I gotta admit, like, my favorites of the game is definitely the combat. It's a very innovative way of playing the games, and I do like the whole kind of teleporting away, firing spells at monsters, and the AoE attacks are fantastic, you know. It's like, it's a very good combination of attacking single monsters to attacking a huge amount of monsters. And when you see the damage number fly up, it's always exciting, and I really enjoy that aspect of the game. However, the flaws is most definitely the inventory system. It was just very, very confusing. I had no idea what, you know, what I was supposed to do in there. And you know, the fact that they had two systems where it was a smart inventory and a custom inventory is a bad sign of someone didn't really do their designing homework, and it just felt like someone had a great idea, but they didn't think about how easy is it for someone to get into the inventory system. And I really feel like I've missed out a lot on that. Like, I really wanted to understand the crafting and understand the synthesis so that I can really make some really powerful items for my spells. So all in all, I would say this game is good. Story is very basic, nothing to really boast about. I don't think there's... I mean, I haven't finished the game, but I'm not really expecting any plot twists. But it's fun, it's got a lot of action. If you want something different than your standard shooty bangs, I recommend you have a go at this game. Probably if you stick with the smart inventory system that they have in the game, I wouldn't even bother trying to understand the crafting. You know, the game's quite pacey, so yeah, I mean, this is just to let you guys have a look at what the game is, and if you feel it is up your alley, I would give it a go. I wouldn't say it's a game that you should definitely get right now, and I wouldn't say it's a game you shouldn't get. You should not get. But if you do see it on Steam for sale, it is definitely worth trying, and you never know, you might actually end up figuring out the inventory system and enjoying it a little bit more than me. So this is review for Lichdom Battle Mage. I hope you guys got a good idea of what the game is, and I hope to see you guys again for more future reviews of weird and strange games that that you would like to see, but you wouldn't really want to pay money and play it through to understand it. So please subscribe if you like this video, and I will catch you guys next time.